Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. God bless you. You can, if you're watching us there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And as if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Sam Fortier from the Washington Post is joining me to talk about this debacle. But Sam, I don't know that there's much to say about this game in general, other than the big picture, meaning as always with this team, 4-9. Let's start with, where do you start with this? Like, I mean, what's your takeaway from this one? I mean, it's a wrap, but what's your takeaway?
I got two things. First, shout out to all the football sickos who are listening to this after a 45-15 loss. Those are my people. So I appreciate you guys tuning in.
Those people are why we're employed.
That's true. The second thing is where I start is Josh Harris saw a pretty embarrassing performance today, but he also saw a blueprint to get better. If you go back to the end of the 2021 season, Miami was an underperforming team with a promising young quarterback and a defensive-minded head coach. They fire Brian Flores, they hire Mike McDaniel, and I think it's a lot more complicated for Washington to follow that blueprint to success than just finding the next Mike McDaniel. I think that's pretty simplistic. But if you are able to do some of the things that Miami is able to do, whether it's acquiring really fast players and elevating them with an innovative scheme, I think the core of it is Miami went out and they said, we have a young, promising quarterback. We need a guy who can elevate him and figure out how to put those pieces around him to elevate him. You're not seeing an offense that is maximizing its pieces right now. And so I think Josh Harris can look at this game and say, how do I do that?
And I'm glad you started there because I think it's a great place to start. So thank you for going there first, because when you watch Tyreek Hill and and this is one of the things I want to watch for this week, is how are they using Terry McLaurin? Why is he not? He had no catch today. Why is that? Is it, we can sit here and say, well, maybe he's not A.J. Brown. He's still really freaking good. He's still a really good player who was not a part of this game at all. And from a production standpoint. So then you watch Miami and you watch on Tyreek Hill's, first of all, the first touchdown, it's the audible to that play. And then you have a mess up by the two defensive backs. They simplified things and they still got it wrong. That's a problem going forward. But it's to Miami's case. Then you look at the second touchdown they had, where they sent him in motion right before the snap. So he gets basically a running start. He can turn up with some sort of momentum going forward. Now he's even harder to cover. He has another one. It's a 3rd down and 12, and they create space for him by sending the running back, Achan, out in motion. So now you're stressing the defensive back. You widen the splits a little bit, and now you're creating a gap for him to get in there. That's what they do. And so they take a guy who's dangerous and they make him more dangerous. And I don't think we've seen that this year out of this offense.
No, we have not seen the scheme elevate the players and vice versa. And I think a really good example of just the way that you can get complementary, not football, but complementary skill players is on the second touchdown. Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek both talked about this in their press conferences. Tyreek was actually in the wrong spot.
Right.
Because Tyreek bends that go route inside. Correct. He thinks he's supposed to take it to the middle of the field. Tua throws it to the outside edge of the numbers. And Tyreek said in his press conference, I thought that Tua messed up, but I went back and I watched the tape and he actually threw it exactly how he was supposed to. And I messed up. And Tyreek, who is an incredibly special player, was able to adjust on the fly and bend back outside and catch that ball. And I think that that's a really perfect example of two guys who are very good at their jobs elevating each other.
And I think that's a great point. The funny thing is that what Tua said too is you want to throw it out there because you're expecting safety help inside. And thank you for the laugh, because there was no safety help inside.
Which has been a constant theme for Percy Butler as the deep safety.
And it's been a problem here, and that is a major priority for whoever's here next year, is to get that part fixed. And, they have not done well as a safety group all year. So that was another problem, but you're right. And then you see, like, the one time Terry did have a chance, he wasn't able to pull it in. Now, would have been a tough catch? Yes. But so was that one, because you got to adjust. So you're not seeing the elevation of guys from one to another. And sometimes you see with Sam being able to extend plays and you can get things out of that, but you're not seeing this, and I don't want to just put it on, well, the scheme isn't doing this, because sometimes you say, well, are they in a position with the talent to also do this? Do you know what I mean? And I even look at Dallas's defense, for example. The way they use Micah Parsons is finding a guy who's ultra talented and then making him even more dangerous by the scheme. And I just don't know that we've seen that enough here.
At the end of the 2022 season, I left this press box thinking this team has three problems on offense: quarterback, offensive line, and offensive coordinator. And while I think that each of those groups has had promising showings at certain parts, I don't know that they've found, including Sam, even though he's played really well at points, I don't know that they've found the long-term solutions to any of those three. And I think the line is clearly where you invested the least this offseason. It's a massive problem, but I'm not willing to put it all on them.
Right.
And I think that, like, when you look at today, and when you look at Dallas and when you look at a couple other games, they struggle to create in structure. There's a reason that a lot of the best plays of this offense is Sam scrambling and finding a running back running up the sideline. Like,
the big plays have been.
It's been a massive problem.
And that's been from the New England game on. It's been like that, where a lot of the big plays are all coming off of that. And I don't want to put it all on one particular area, because when you have Bieniemy coming in and you've got an inexperienced quarterback, plus all these new linemen, and the line wasn't very good to begin with. But, when you look at Miami's line, I don't know, they play better as a group, but how much of that is taking a scheme and making them better as well? And so it's one thing compounds another. And then I think what happens is too, you get that's where a lot of frustration boils over.
I think I said this on the preseason pod that we did with Matty P and Pete Haley, who we miss dearly. This is a house of cards, because if you had a veteran quarterback who you knew what you were getting, you knew what you could put on him, then that's a different thing for Eric Bieniemy. I think that all of these pieces are trying to figure out what they can handle and what they are at the same time. And I'm not saying that it's on any of these guys. I'm not saying, it's an indictment on their future, but when you stack all of them together, that's when it becomes a massive problem.
Correct. And that's where I say because even in the offseason, you say, like, well, I think this and this and this will be better offensively, details, whatever. But when does it coalesce and how long does it take? Because it always takes a long time. Now you're playing really good defenses, and you would like to have seen more improvement from this group in general. And I think, even like the motion, like Miami uses it really well. And I love even looking to this game, studying for it before, like, really what all you had to do is, like, they're playing Miami. Okay, this is a wrap, but you still got to watch the game. And so but I like watching really creative offenses. And I like when you take guys who are really fast, Waddle and Hill, and make them better through that. And I think, is it because they do have a veteran quarterback? I don't know how much can you put more on him and ask him to do a little bit more because of that. And
I don't think it should be overlooked that this is their second year in the system. They were good last year, don't get me wrong, but you've seen the step forward
to another level.
They've all taken it to another level, I think. And so I think that's the thing, is like, Eric Bieniemy could be a very good offensive coordinator, and we just might not be able to see it. And I don't think I don't think it's anyone's fault necessarily, but, like, it's, not to keep saying what we've said, but it's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. And it's it's as much situational as anything else. And so I agree. And it just, when you're looking at going forward though, but I go back to your original point about what you're looking for in a next guy. And I do think that it's that creative mindset. And it's just not about that, because you can get guys in who are creative. They may not be good head coaches. I think McDaniel also came in and they did that, and they went out and got Tyreek Hill. And you did have a quarterback who could play your system, but you
see, like this is, I was thinking about this when I'm typing up my story right now as well. Like, the Raiders went out and got Devontae Adams, but I don't think they had a plan beyond getting Devontae Adams. Atlanta has a bunch of great skill players, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, but they bet on a suspect quarterback to elevate that group. Miami had all of the pieces. It was cohesive. It was holistic. It made sense. And I think that, like, whoever you bring in has to understand all of those components.
Right. And I think it's going to go. And the problem is, will we end the season knowing who's going to be the guy next year at quarterback?
I don't think we can. Especially because if you end up with a top 7 pick and you hire a new GM or a new head coach, and they fall in love with Caleb Williams or Drake May or Michael Penix or one of those other guys, then I think, and if you feel like, hey, there's a franchise changer, even though we think Sam is very good, I think it's totally defensible to just say, go get that guy.
Well, I think if you're the philosophy usually is if you don't have that elite guy and you have a chance that you think get one, then you go get that one. And it's not even like, I think you could build around Sam if you wanted to. If they said we're going to do that, I'd say, okay, I get it. But it's not so much what we think. We also know, like, we don't know what they're going to think. So that's why it's important for me it'd be important for Sam to finish well, both you and Howell to finish well, that just to make it, clear what a new coach should do. And I don't know if we'll get that because they're playing really good teams, but they're also not operating at a very good efficiency.
I would also say it's important for you to finish strong, but for an extremely veteran writer, I think we know what we're going to get at this point.
Well, listen, man, I'm already in Cancun. So.
But one other point on Tua versus Sam, because I do think Tua is a helpful comparison here. I think that Tua is a very good quarterback, and a lot of people don't appreciate his strengths enough. I think one of his biggest strengths is anticipatory throws. Yes. Like his vision and the way that he throws guys open is really impressive. He might not be a physical specimen or a singular talent in terms of a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, but I think that guy's really good at things. But I don't know if you gave him a max contract and you had to start cutting costs at other positions, could he elevate that team? I'm not sure. I kind of see Sam's potential. I don't know about his potential. I may not put a ceiling on him, but right now, like, my best guess for Sam is he could be that guy. He could elevate a team, but I don't know if you could put him in we're going to win because of him every week.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I would like to see, but again, I think this is where maximizing a guy takes place. And that can be with scheme. It can also be with, obviously we know the line has to be fixed, but, again, I look at Tua and I don't know how good that line is. What I know is they do a really good job of creating instant wins for him. And if you can do that with a guy, then you don't have to have this unbelievable front line. But if you're not doing that, then you better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. The person they hire at GM and or head coach has to be able to work together to understand what levers do we need to pull and when, and what is the thresholds we need to hit for us to be a successful offense.
Do I really need to ask, did you see any defensive changes? Do we have to go down that road?
I mean, we can. The only thing that I think is worth talking about at this point, I guess maybe there's two conversations. One, do you resign Cam Curl and at what price? And two,
price.
How do you fix the pass rush? Because they're not generating pressure. Obviously, trading away Montez Sweat and Chase Young is going to hurt, but those two guys inside, I don't think are playing, their best football right now either. And so can you bet on them to, play better? Or, what do you do with the edge rusher market? Because obviously Chicago looked at the edge rusher market this offseason in the draft and free agency and said, hey, we'd rather have that guy on the Commanders.
Right. And they got him.
And he's playing pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, because he's a pretty good player. And
that's the analysis you come to the John Keim report for.
But it is funny because at the time you say, okay, that's a really good value for him. And I still think it was good value on that trade. But I will also say, even at the time, like, it's going to hurt, but it's good value. Both things were true, but they're not getting anything from that. And I also think I go back to the same thing we're talking about on offense. And I go back to watching like Dallas, watch Minnesota, watch the Giants and how they maneuver guys around up front to create those one-on-one situations, not just through Cinco, but through other ways to get some movement up front. And I thought they'd do a little bit. They did have a blitz on one of the touchdowns. I think it was a 60-yard. They did blitz on that one. They had a game on one of the other ones that I think someone had a good rush, but slipped a little bit. But otherwise, it was a lot of just 4-man, right? And so that's not they wasn't working when they had the guys to make it work, let alone when they don't.
Yeah, it to me, like the play that summed up the whole game was the first touchdown where Tyreek Hill is singled up versus a rookie nickel, and like you're gonna lose that battle. Like it doesn't matter how much you pare down the scheme, it doesn't matter what you tweak, and hopefully for Quan Martin, he learns from that because I think that he's going to be a part of this defense going forward, and you just got to say, damn, we got beat 45-15, and hopefully the guys like learn something from that.
And it sounds like they kind of played that one wrong too a little bit, where you've got you've got to jam him or do something, and you need help over the top, and neither thing really happened. And so you took a guy who's a great player and you just made him even better. But again, so I think we could kind of keep beating that horse to death, right? That what they do versus what these guys do. And when you have special talent, but I don't think, and it's funny because like you hear the question asked, are you guys too talented for this? And I don't like, do you think they're,
Wait. What do you mean?
when in the locker room after the game with Washington, you hear people saying you guys seem to be too talented to be 4-9.
Okay.
Do you think that's, I mean, how is that an accurate thing to say? Or
it's tough.
Are.
It's tough because coming into this year,
yeah,
I felt, you felt,
yeah,
everybody in the locker room felt, especially on offense, that this was the best team that they had under Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of inarguable. Like it's the most talented, but for a multitude of reasons, I think, it's hard to untangle them, especially because, it's like the slow starts on defense, particularly early in the year, didn't allow you to play a balanced offense with Sam Howell. And so you're putting a lot on him. And then it's, things are spiraling out of control. And then when you're just never able to play on the same page, except against Philly. And even then you're falling short. Like, I think kind of like we're talking about with the offense, like why this team has failed to live up to expectations is really complicated. And that's not a cop-out. It's just that there's a lot of factors.
And there's always a lot of factors too. And like,
because I do think they are too talented to be 4-9.
And I would say this, like we hear this a lot. And sometimes you always at the year, you wonder, did we overrate this or that? And I think there's sometimes it's true, but I will say, like, I thought part of it too is I thought they had a good camp as far as how they worked and how they came out of that. And, you thought it'd be better. But I did not count on the defense really playing it. And for all the stuff we just talked about offensively, if this defense plays better, they were 500 at worst coming into this game. And that didn't happen. So, all the offensive talk, that defense really, really failed them in a massive way. And I think they underestimated what they had or overestimated what they had in the secondary. And I did too. Like I thought the secondary would be better and they weren't. And so I think that's part of the problem. The other thing, last thing, Sam, too, in the locker room, you'll hear the phrase growth and development. I think guys are tired of hearing that phrase. Would you agree?
Antonio Gibson basically said
John Allen.
And John Allen, they both said, those are just, I think Antonio Gibson's exact quote was like, it's just words.
Yeah.
We are not putting it on film. We're not showing it on Sundays. And so we can talk about growth and development. We can talk about getting better. And I think the thing that kills them and the thing that's, troubling in the evaluation is there are moments where you see it. It's just never consistent.
Correct.
And so
that's been the problem.
And so that's the problem is.
And even Sam Howell will talk about that. It's the consistency. And because you do see it. I think that's what would frustrate them and it would frustrate people watching. Is like, you saw it here, here, and here. But yet the one play, because the funny thing is, and this will sound stupid, there are a lot of plays defensively. They, you did that pretty well. But those big plays just kill them because they happen all the time. So it's not like you can't say if you take those away because they happen every game and they are part of the game. But sometimes you see that it's like, you just did it here.
It's kind of the same thing to me as Jack Del Rio emphasizing all training camp, start fast, start fast, start fast. Didn't happen.
No.
So that's why he's fired.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're going to see, a major overhaul this offseason.
Yep, absolutely. Sam, tell them where they can find you.
On Twitter at SAM4TR, SAM4TR, in the Washington Post, on WashingtonPost.com, occasionally on the John Keim Report. But that's all my bad days.
That's right. All right. It's Christmas season. Somebody just got on the naughty list. Mrs. Fortier, I hope you're paying attention.
Wow. I was on FaceTime with her the other day and she actually said, when are you doing the podcast? I love the shout outs.
There you go. Shout out, Miss Fortier. Anyway, thanks for tuning in and thanks for Sam for coming on. I'll be back. God bless you, folks. I may do a film review Tuesday morning. We're going to see, but there will be a live stream Tuesday night, 7:30 with Nikki Javala of the Washington Post. So I'll talk to you next time.